Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be diving into
Yeah.
geothermal energy
She's throwing.
using the IEA's, that's the International Energy Agency,
Right.
their report, The Future of Geothermal Energy.
Great report.
Yeah, and we're going to be looking at, kind of where geothermal is today, and then this mind-blowing potential of
Yeah.
all this next-gen technology that's coming down the pike.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. I mean,
But first,
it's a game changer, really.
here's something, here's a fact that might surprise you.
Okay.
Geothermal is actually the least used clean energy source after ocean energy.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it? You think of all the, attention that solar and wind get.
Yeah.
Geothermal kind of gets left behind a little bit.
Yeah. Why is that? Let's find out.
I think one of the things that's interesting is that most people, when they think of geothermal, they think of geysers and hot springs. But that's really just, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
The real potential lies in tapping into these vast heat reserves that are deep beneath the Earth's crust.
So to kind of set the stage here, how much energy does geothermal currently provide globally?
Well, it's actually quite small. It's only about 5 exajoules annually.
Yeah, okay.
And to give you an idea of the scale of that, that's less than 1% of global energy demand.
Wow.
And most of that is being used for direct heat applications like
Wow.
heating buildings or, industrial processes.
So not exactly powering the world just yet.
Not quite yet.
Yeah.
But there is huge potential.
Okay.
And here's another interesting tidbit from the report. While over 40 countries have the potential to produce geothermal energy,
Oh.
only 22 have actually set specific targets for it. So there's a big gap there between, the potential and the actual action being taken.
Makes you wonder why more countries aren't jumping on this, especially with, everyone trying to move toward clean energy. Is it just a matter of cost?
Cost is definitely a factor.
Oh.
Generating electricity from geothermal can be more expensive than solar or wind power right now.
Okay.
But there's a really important distinction to make here. Geothermal is what we call dispatchable.
Okay.
That means it can provide a constant and reliable supply of electricity.
Oh, okay.
Unlike solar and wind, which of course depend on the sun shining and the wind blowing.
Right.
So geothermal can be a real asset for having a stable power grid.
Oh, so that makes sense. So it's maybe more expensive to build, but
Yeah.
you get that reliability, which is, you can't really put a price on that.
Exactly. It's crucial for, as we transition to more renewable energy sources, we need that baseload power that we can rely on.
Yeah.
And geothermal can provide that.
Okay, so it's more expensive. Are there any other hurdles? Besides the cost?
Yeah, there are a few other challenges that the report highlights.
Okay.
For example, permitting for geothermal projects can be complex, and it often takes a long time to get approval.
Oh, I see.
There's a lot of regulations,
Yeah.
environmental assessments, and things like that.
That makes sense.
Public perception can also be an issue.
Oh, how so?
Well, there are concerns about things like induced seismicity.
Now, remind me what that is again.
That's basically man-made earthquakes
Right.
that can sometimes be triggered by geothermal activities.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how that would make people
That's-
nervous, for sure. It's one thing to have solar panels on your roof, but it's another thing to be, drilling deep into the earth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where these, new technologies come in.
Right, yeah, the report does mention.
Because they're designed to
Yeah.
address some of those concerns.
Okay, so we're going to get to those next-gen marvels. But before we do,
Yes.
let's talk about the people involved in all this.
Okay, yeah.
How many jobs are actually tied to the geothermal sector right now?
Well, the report states that about 145,000 jobs are directly related to geothermal energy production.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that a lot of those jobs
Yeah.
require skills that are transferable from the oil and gas industry.
Oh, okay. So there's already a potential workforce out there with relevant experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap in terms of,
Right.
the drilling techniques and the subsurface knowledge that's required.
That's a good starting point then.
Yeah, it is. And as the industry grows,
Right.
we'll need
Right.
even more skilled workers, of course. Yeah. And actually, the report suggests that the oil and gas industry could actually play a key role in making geothermal more cost effective. And we'll talk about that connection in more detail later.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here, but
Yeah.
let's get to kind of the heart of the matter here, which is these next gen technologies. What makes them so groundbreaking?
Well, the thing that's really, I think, transformative about these technologies is that they have the potential to make geothermal energy accessible in almost any location.
Wait, almost anywhere. Now that sounds like
Mhm.
a game changer.
Yeah, it's not just limited to those areas where you have, those traditional, easily accessible hydrothermal resources.
Okay.
We're talking about tapping into the heat that's far deeper
Right.
within the Earth's
Okay,
crust.
so how does that even work?
Well, there are two main types of what we call next-gen technologies that we're going to be talking about today.
Okay.
Enhanced geothermal systems, or EGS,
EGS.
and then closed-loop geothermal systems, sometimes called CLGS or AGS.
Okay, so let's break this down. What's EGS all about?
EGS is basically about accessing heat
All right.
deep down where there isn't naturally a lot of water present.
Okay.
So think of it as kind of creating an artificial hydrothermal reservoir.
Okay.
And it involves using techniques similar to fracking, where you inject fluids at high pressure to create or expand fractures in these hot rocks deep underground.
Right.
And then that allows water to circulate
Okay.
and collect that heat.
So you're basically like engineering the earth to produce more geothermal energy.
In a way, yeah. Yeah, you're kind of giving it a helping hand.
That's pretty impressive. But what about this other one? CLGS.
Right.
How is that different?
CLGS is a bit less intrusive.
Okay.
Instead of relying on existing or created fractures in the rock, it uses a closed system of pipes,
Okay.
and a fluid circulates within these pipes, absorbing heat from the surrounding hot rocks through conduction.
Okay.
And this significantly reduces the risk of things like induced seismicity,
Right.
and it minimizes the environmental impact.
Oh, that sounds a lot less, a lot more reassuring, especially with all those concerns we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are there actually examples of these technologies out there, like in action?
Yeah, there are some great examples.
Okay.
For EGS, there's the Utah Forge project in the United States.
Okay.
And they're drilling deep wells and experimenting with these different stimulation techniques
Right.
to create an enhanced geothermal reservoir.
Okay.
And for CLGS, there's Evers Geretsried project in Germany.
Okay.
And they're constructing a commercial-scale closed-loop system
Oh, wow.
to provide both heat and electricity.
Okay.
So both of these projects are ongoing,
That
and they're showing really promising results.
This is pretty mind-blowing. We have this like massive
Yeah.
untapped source of clean energy beneath our feet, and now we're developing all this technology
Right.
to access it, in a more sustainable way.
Exactly.
It feels like we're on the verge of like a geothermal revolution.
I think you're right. The potential benefits are really staggering. Just imagine a future where
Mhm.
geothermal energy is as common as solar and wind power.
Okay, let's talk numbers then. What kind of impact could these next gen technologies have on the kind of global energy landscape?
Well, the report emphasizes that the potential is huge EE,
Okay.
and it's huge for both electricity and heat.
Right.
And even using conservative estimates,
Okay.
next-gen geothermal could provide enough electricity to power the entire world several times over.
Whoa. That's hard to even
Yeah,
fathom.
yeah, it's mind-boggling to think about.
What would that even look like?
I know, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And the potential for heat is equally impressive. Geothermal could replace most fossil fuel district heating systems,
Okay.
and it could even help decarbonize a lot of industrial processes.
So it's not just about like clean electricity, it's about clean heat too.
Exactly.
This could be, this is huge for tackling climate change.
Yeah, geothermal has the potential to become a key player in decarbonizing our entire energy system.
Okay. So we've got the electricity, we've got the heat. What else can we do with this?
Well, remember all that hot, mineral-rich brine that gets pumped up from these geothermal reservoirs
Right.
to drive the turbines?
Yeah.
Well, that brine can also be used to extract valuable minerals, including lithium.
Wait, lithium?
Yeah.
As in like the key ingredient for batteries in electric vehicles.
That's incredible.
So geothermal energy could be a game changer for the clean energy transition on multiple levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a double whammy for clean energy.
It is. And this multi-use approach makes geothermal even more economically viable.
Yeah.
There are already projects underway that are actually demonstrating this concept, like the Salton Sea project in California
Right.
and Vulcan Energy's projects in Europe.
So this is, This is truly revolutionary stuff.
It is.
But I mean, are there any roadblocks that could prevent this from like reaching its full potential? Well, of course, every emerging technology has its hurdles.
Right.
The report highlights some key barriers: permitting, financing, and public perception.
We talked about permitting and public perception, but what about the financing? Why is that such a challenge?
Well, geothermal projects, especially the ones involving these next-gen technologies,
Yeah.
require a lot of upfront investment,
Yeah.
for exploration, drilling, power plant construction.
Right.
And these costs can be a deterrent for some investors.
So it's about like finding ways to make those projects more financially attractive.
Exactly. And the report suggests a variety of policy mechanisms to address these financial barriers.
Like what?
Things like providing grants, offering subsidized loans, establishing public insurance schemes, and implementing well-designed remuneration schemes to kind of encourage that investment.
Yeah. So it's about providing those early stage incentives and then making sure that there's long-term revenue stability to make it a safer investment.
Exactly. And the report also highlights the potential of repurposing old oil and gas wells.
Oh, right. We
Yeah.
touched on that before. Tell me more about that.
Well, instead of just abandoning those wells, we could actually give them a new life
Right.
as geothermal energy sources.
Right.
And that would significantly reduce costs, of course.
Because you don't have to
You wouldn't have to drill new wells.
drill a new well.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And we already have a wealth of data about those existing wells
Right.
and the surrounding geology.
So it's like turning a potential environmental liability into a clean energy asset.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
We reduce our reliance on fossil fuels.
Right.
We create new clean energy jobs.
Right.
And we minimize the environmental impact of those old wells.
That's brilliant. Okay. So I'm sold on the repurposing, but let's zoom out a bit and look at kind of the market as a whole.
Okay. Yeah.
Where are we seeing the most action when it comes to this next gen geothermal technology?
Well, the report identifies the top 3 markets as China, the United States, and India.
Okay. Yeah.
So those are the big players.
Big players.
Yeah, to watch. They have the resources, the demand, and the political will to really drive geothermal growth.
Makes sense. Those are also some of the biggest energy consumers
Exactly.
globally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But how does this next gen geothermal stack up against other clean energy sources when it comes to the cost?
Well, that's a bit of a tricky question because the levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE, for next-gen geothermal is still a bit uncertain. It depends on a lot of factors. The depth of the wells, the specific technology that's used, local regulations, things like that.
Okay. So we don't really have a clear picture yet, but remind me, what is LCOE again?
So the LCOE is basically a way to compare the cost of producing electricity from different sources over their lifetime.
Right. Okay.
So it helps us evaluate the economic viability of different energy options.
Okay. And while it's still kind of evolving, does the report have any projections?
Yeah, it does offer some projections.
And how do those look? Is it competitive with solar and wind?
Well, even if the LCOE of next-gen geothermal ends up being a little bit higher than, say, solar PV or wind, there's that crucial factor that we talked about earlier, the reliability.
Right.
Geothermal can provide that constant baseload power that other renewables can't quite match.
Yeah, so it's not just about the cost per megawatt hour. It's about the overall value that it brings.
Exactly. Geothermal adds value that's really hard to quantify in just a simple LCOE calculation.
Yeah.
It offers energy security and grid stability, which are becoming increasingly important as we move to a cleaner energy system.
Okay, so the value proposition goes beyond just dollars and cents.
It does, yeah.
But those other challenges are still there, right? The permitting public perception, the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And the report actually offers some very concrete policy recommendations to address those challenges.
All right, let's dive into those. What needs to happen to kind of really unleash geothermal's full potential?
Well, I think one of the most important things is really moving geothermal up the energy policy agenda.
Okay.
It needs to be more prominent in national energy planning.
So giving it a seat at the table.
Exactly.
With solar, wind, all the other
Right.
renewables.
Alongside solar, wind, and also other dispatchable sources
Right.
like nuclear power and hydroelectricity.
Right.
The report emphasizes that geothermal can play a really valuable role in complementing other clean energy sources,
Yeah.
contributing to grid stability, ensuring a reliable energy supply.
So it's like building a diverse, clean energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about having that
We
mix.
can meet our needs.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But how do we address those public concerns, like
Right.
the
Yeah.
induced seismicity?
Well, transparency and early engagement with communities are really key here.
Okay.
The report recommends involving communities in the decision-making process,
Oh, okay.
providing clear information about the potential risks and benefits, and implementing really robust environmental safeguards to minimize any negative impacts.
So it's about building trust from the outset.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about demonstrating that geothermal projects can be good neighbors.
It makes sense if you're going to be drilling deep into the earth.
Near someone's house, you need to make sure they understand what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the report actually provides some successful examples
Oh, okay.
of community engagement from countries like Kenya and New Zealand,
Okay.
showing that this approach can actually work.
Okay, so that's reassuring to hear.
Yeah.
What about the workforce challenge? How do we make sure we have enough
Right.
skilled people to actually build and
Learning,
operate
right.
these power plants?
The report recommends expanding geothermal-specific training programs,
Okay.
creating dedicated academic programs, and encouraging collaboration between the geothermal industry and educational institutions.
So building that pipeline kind of skilled workers
Exactly.
to meet the growing demand.
Yeah, yeah. It's about, nurturing that next generation of geothermal professionals.
Makes sense. And I think you mentioned earlier
Right.
that there could be like a transition
Yeah.
of workers from the oil and gas industry to
Yeah, that's a really important point.
Okay.
The report highlights that opportunity, suggesting that oil and gas companies could actually play a key role here by offering training and retraining
Right.
for their employees who might be interested in moving into geothermal.
Okay, so that's a win-win.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Companies get to retain their employees.
Right.
Workers get new skills in a growing industry.
Right.
And the geothermal sector benefits from, a more experienced workforce.
Okay. I think starting to see all the pieces
Yeah.
fall into place here. But
Yeah.
before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Right.
I want to get just your initial thoughts.
Yeah.
What are some of your key takeaways so far?
Well, to me, I think the most striking thing is just the sheer scale of geothermal's potential. It's truly mind-boggling.
It is hard to wrap your head around, isn't it?
Sure did.
And to
Big.
think all this time this has been largely untapped.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're just scratching the surface.
Right. It's incredible.
But it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of this geothermal revolution. There are challenges to overcome,
Right.
but the potential rewards are enormous.
Yeah. I'm feeling pretty optimistic too.
Yeah, me too.
And we've only just begun our exploration. We'll be back soon to delve deeper into those policy recommendations, the exciting advancements in next-gen technologies, and the global implications of all this.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating journey. Stay tuned. As we kind of dig deeper into this IEA report on geothermal energy,
Yeah.
one thing that really jumps out at me is the sheer scale of the potential here.
It really is.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
Yeah, we talked about like EGS
Oh.
potentially generating enough electricity to power the world several times over.
Right.
But even that seems like just the tip of the iceberg. The report mentions something called super hot rock systems.
Yes.
What are those? And how do they fit into this whole picture?
Super hot rock systems are, they're kind of like geothermal on steroids, I guess you could say.
Okay.
They're essentially extremely deep, high-pressure rock formations
Okay.
with temperatures exceeding 373 degrees Celsius, which is the point where water reaches a supercritical state.
Supercritical water. That sounds intense.
It is pretty intense. It means it's neither a liquid nor a gas at that point.
Okay, so what are the implications of that for geothermal?
Well, imagine harnessing the energy from those systems.
Yeah.
It could unlock a whole new level of geothermal power.
Wow.
But as you can imagine, there are some pretty serious technical challenges involved.
Like what?
Well, the The report highlights the need for specialized drilling equipment and materials
Right.
that can withstand those extreme conditions.
Makes sense.
A whole different ballgame compared to, conventional geothermal.
So super hot rock systems are kind of like the next frontier of geothermal.
Exactly.
The final level of the video game, so to
That's
speak.
a great analogy. Yeah.
Okay, let's bring it back down to earth for a minute.
Okay.
We've talked about the potential here,
Right.
but what about those policy recommendations? What concrete steps can governments take to actually accelerate geothermal growth, like in the near term?
Well, the report kind of lays out a multi-pronged approach
Okay.
to address all the various challenges
Right.
that the industry is facing.
Right.
I think a key priority is raising the profile of geothermal energy within the overall energy policy landscape.
So giving it a more prominent seat at the table alongside solar, wind, all those other clean energy sources?
Yeah, alongside solar, wind, and other dispatchable sources as well, like nuclear and hydro.
Right.
The report really emphasizes that geothermal can play a vital role in complementing those other clean energy technologies.
Okay.
It can help provide grid stability, ensure a reliable energy supply, even when, the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
Right.
So it's about...
So it's like building a diverse and resilient clean energy portfolio.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
To meet our future needs.
Precisely.
Okay.
Another key recommendation is developing risk mitigation schemes to encourage investment in these early stage geothermal projects.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, those initial exploration and drilling phases can be pretty risky and costly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And not all investors are comfortable with that level of uncertainty.
Right.
So the report suggests a variety of approaches to kind of address those risks. Things like grants, subsidized loans, public insurance schemes to help incentivize developers and make those early investments more appealing.
So it's like providing like a safety net for those early investors to kind of give them the confidence to dive into geothermal.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Okay.
And the report also highlights the role that international and regional financing institutions can play.
Okay.
In providing support for geothermal projects, particularly in developing countries.
Right, because those institutions have like a lot of experience in financing these large scale infrastructure projects and can help manage those financial risks.
Exactly.
But what about long-term revenue stability? I mean, we discussed earlier how geothermal can be more expensive than some other renewables.
Yeah.
So how do we make it attractive to investors over the long haul?
Well, well-designed remuneration schemes are really key here.
Okay.
The report suggests several mechanisms.
Okay.
Things like feed-in tariffs, feed-in premiums, and competitive auctions.
Okay.
All aimed at ensuring that long-term revenue certainty for geothermal power plants.
So it's about creating like a stable and predictable
revenue stream that gives investors that confidence to commit to these long-term projects.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
It's also about, recognizing geothermal's unique value to the power grid.
Right.
The report suggests increasing ancillary service payments for geothermal plants and including them in capacity markets.
Now, just to clarify for our listeners, what are ancillary services and capacity markets?
Sure, yeah. Ancillary services are things like voltage regulation, frequency control, spinning reserve. Basically, all the services that help keep the power grid stable and reliable.
Right. Okay.
And capacity markets are basically mechanisms that pay generators for their ability to provide power when it's most needed, often during, those peak demand periods when the grid is really strained.
Okay, so it's about compensating geothermal plants, not just for the electricity that they generate, but also for their contribution to overall grid stability and reliability.
That's right.
Okay.
And the report argues that these payments should really reflect the full value that geothermal brings to the table.
Right.
Which goes beyond just simply generating megawatts.
So it's like paying for the whole package of benefits that geothermal provides.
That's right.
Okay.
And this kind of holistic approach is really crucial for ensuring the financial viability of these geothermal projects and making them competitive with the other clean energy sources.
It seems like we're kind of witnessing a shift in thinking about about energy systems, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not just about like chasing the lowest cost per megawatt hour anymore.
Right.
It's about taking a broader view
Yeah.
and valuing those technologies that can contribute to a stable and resilient grid.
Yeah, absolutely. And the report actually goes deeper into that concept when it talks about the value adjusted LCOE
Ah, right.
or VALCO.
Valco.
Yeah.
Remind me what that is again. Yeah, so the Valco is it's basically a more, I guess, sophisticated way of comparing different energy technologies.
Okay.
It goes beyond just the simple LCOE calculation
Right.
to kind of incorporate those system-wide benefits,
Right.
the value of flexibility, capacity, and emissions avoidance.
So it's a more nuanced and comprehensive way to evaluate
And
those different energy sources.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, and how does geothermal kind of fare in this Valco analysis?
Well, when you factor in those system-wide benefits, geothermal becomes even more attractive.
Right.
The report actually uses the Valco to compare geothermal to other dispatchable clean energy technologies.
Okay.
And the results are quite compelling.
Mm.
With significant cost reductions, next-gen geothermal could become one of the most competitive options out there.
That's impressive. It is, yeah.
But even with those cost reductions, we still need to address those other hurdles that we talked about.
The permitting, public perception, and building a skilled workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And the report actually offers some concrete policy recommendations
Okay.
in those areas as well.
Okay. Let's tackle those one by one.
Okay.
What about permitting? How do we streamline that process for geothermal projects?
Well, the report recommends a few strategies to kind of make the permitting process
Yeah.
more efficient and predictable and
Right.
and less bureaucratic, I guess.
Okay.
Some of the suggestions include consolidating and accelerating the administrative steps,
Yeah.
potentially creating dedicated geothermal permitting regimes,
Okay.
separate from those from mineral mining and things like that,
Right. Right.
and setting realistic deadlines for project reviews.
So it's about cutting through like the red tape
Yeah.
and making the process more
Yeah.
transparent and efficient for developers.
That's right. And the report also emphasizes the importance of increased cooperation among all the stakeholders
Right.
involved in the permitting process. So government agencies, developers, local communities.
Yeah. Yeah. Collaboration is key.
It is, yeah.
The more communication and upfront engagement,
Right.
the smoother the process will be for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, what about public perception? How do we address those concerns about induced seismicity
Yeah.
or other potential environmental impacts to kind of build public support for these projects?
Well, the report dedicates a significant section to this,
Yeah.
the crucial aspect of geothermal development.
Okay.
One key recommendation is engaging early and transparently with communities,
Okay.
involving them in the decision-making process,
Right.
providing clear and accurate information
Yeah.
about the potential risks and benefits.
Right. It's about building trust from the outset.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If people feel like they're being kept in the dark,
Right.
or their concerns aren't being taken seriously, they're less likely to support these projects.
Right. Right.
And the report also emphasizes the importance of robust environmental safeguards
Yeah.
to minimize those potential negative impacts,
Okay.
and also ensuring that communities benefit from these projects, whether it's through job creation, economic development, or other means.
Right. It's about making sure everyone benefits, not just the
Exactly.
developers and the investors. That's how you build like lasting public support.
That's right. And the report actually provides several real-world examples
Oh, okay.
of successful community engagement initiatives in countries like Kenya and New Zealand, for example,
Okay.
showing how this approach can really lead to positive outcomes for everyone.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is, yeah.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the workforce.
Right.
We need skilled professionals to design, build,
Wow.
operate these power plants. How do we make sure that we have a robust and qualified workforce?
Well, the report acknowledges that a shortage of skilled workers could really hinder
Yeah.
geothermal growth.
Okay.
So it recommends expanding geothermal-specific training programs,
Okay.
establishing dedicated academic programs,
All right.
and encouraging collaboration between the industry
Yeah.
and educational institutions.
So investing in education and training
Yeah.
to build that pipeline
Yeah.
of future geothermal professionals.
That's right. It's about, nurturing that next generation of geothermal experts.
And I think we mentioned earlier the potential for transitioning workers
Right, yeah.
from the oil and gas sector to
Right.
geothermal.
That's a really important point, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a perfect opportunity to leverage existing skills and experience
Yeah.
while creating, new
Right.
clean energy jobs.
Yeah. And the report actually suggests that oil and gas companies could take a proactive role in this transition
Yeah.
by offering training and retraining opportunities for their workers who are, interested in making the move to geothermal.
Yeah, that's a win-win for everyone.
It is, yeah. Companies get to retain valuable employees.
Right.
Workers acquire new skills in a growing industry.
Yep.
And the geothermal sector benefits from a more experienced workforce.
Right.
It's a great example of how, collaboration and forward thinking can really help us navigate this clean energy transition.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Right.
Delving into those policy recommendations, exploring the technical challenges of these super hot rock systems, and thinking about how we build a strong workforce to support geothermal growth.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating exploration.
It really has.
And we're just starting to scratch the surface of this incredible technology.
What really stood out to you? What are your final thoughts on everything we've discussed so far?
Well, I think for me, the most striking aspect is this kind of paradigm shift in how we're thinking about geothermal energy.
Yeah.
It's no longer limited to those traditional hydrothermal resources.
Right.
We're talking about technologies that can access heat almost anywhere on Earth at depths and temperatures that were once, unimaginable.
It's like we've unlocked a whole new dimension of geothermal energy.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
And this report from the IEA seems incredibly optimistic about the future of this technology.
It is, yeah.
They highlight, those advancements in next generation technologies, the growing interest from investors and policymakers, and the potential for geothermal to play a truly transformative role in our energy systems.
Yeah, it's a very optimistic report. And what's particularly encouraging, I think, is the emphasis on international cooperation.
Okay.
The report strongly advocates for, increased collaboration among countries, research institutions, and industry stakeholders to accelerate the development and deployment of geothermal energy.
It's not just about individual countries going it alone.
Exactly.
That's about
it's about working together.
We're working together.
Sharing knowledge and resources.
Sharing knowledge.
Learning from each other's experiences.
Yeah.
To accelerate geothermal growth on a global scale.
Right, because we're all in this together.
We are, yeah.
And the report actually provides some great examples of successful international collaborations.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like the GRO geothermal training program in Iceland.
Okay.
And the EU-funded SALTS project in France, which has been a real pioneer in deep geothermal energy extraction.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see those examples of global collaboration.
It is, yeah.
In action, it shows what we can achieve when we kind of work together towards a common goal.
I completely agree.
All right, I think we've covered a lot of ground for today.
We have, yeah.
But as we wrap up this part of our geothermal deep dive, there's one more question that's been kind of lingering in my mind.
Okay, what's that?
Well, I mean, we've explored the vast potential of geothermal energy.
Yeah.
The policy recommendations for unlocking that potential, the exciting technological advancements that are on the horizon. But I'm still curious. Is there anything else holding geothermal back that we haven't covered yet? Well, I mean, we've explored the vast potential of geothermal energy, the policy recommendations for unlocking that potential, the exciting technological advancements that are on the horizon. But I'm still curious. Is there anything else holding geothermal back that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. There are a few more nuances that we need to kind of explore here. The report highlights a few additional challenges that are specific to geothermal development.
Okay, let's hear them. What are we missing?
One challenge is the issue of standardization.
Okay.
Unlike more established industries like solar PV or wind, geothermal still lacks widely recognized technical standards for equipment, materials, processes.
So it's a bit of a Wild West out there. Everyone's kind of doing things their
No,
own way.
to some extent, yeah. And this lack of standardization can lead to inefficiencies, higher costs, and even, safety concerns.
Yeah. That makes sense. If you don't have like clear guidelines and best practices in place, it's harder to make sure that everything is being done properly and safely. And I imagine that could make investors a little nervous too.
Absolutely. It can also limit the scalability of geothermal projects, right?
Right.
If everyone is using different equipment and different approaches, it's harder to replicate successes and to build a really robust and efficient supply chain.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the solution? How do we bring some order to this geothermal frontier?
Well, the report recommends that policymakers, in collaboration with organizations like the International Organization for Standardization,
Right.
ISO,
Right.
and the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, should establish a dedicated technical committee to develop geothermal-specific standards.
So it's about setting those clear guidelines and best practices that we talked about.
Exactly, yeah. And these standards should cover all aspects of geothermal development, you know, from from exploration and drilling to power plant construction and operation.
Okay, so it seems like a crucial step in kind of professionalizing the industry and making it more attractive
Right.
to investors, to insurance companies.
Absolutely. And it could also impact public perception too.
Oh, okay, how so?
Well, if there are clear standards in place for things like well construction and environmental monitoring,
Yeah.
it provides reassurance to communities that these projects are being developed responsibly and safely.
Right, right. It's like having that seal of approval from a trusted organization. It can help build confidence and reduce anxiety
Right.
about potential risks.
Exactly. And this ties back to that broader theme of social acceptance that we talked about earlier.
Right, yeah.
Standardization can be a really valuable tool for building trust and demonstrating that geothermal can be a good neighbor.
Okay, so we've got standardization.
Yeah.
What else is on the list of geothermal challenges?
Another issue that the report highlights is the need for more research and innovation.
Okay.
Despite the recent advancements in next generation technologies, there's still a lot of untapped potential in geothermal, especially when it comes to those super hot rock systems.
Right, those are the ones that could really take
Mhm.
geothermal to that next level.
Exactly. Yeah. But as you mentioned earlier, they also come with some pretty significant
Yeah.
technical challenges.
Right.
Tapping into those resources is going to require continued investment in research and development to really overcome those hurdles.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about developing drilling equipment and materials that can withstand these incredibly high
Right.
temperatures and
Yeah.
pressures.
It's a massive engineering challenge.
So what's the recipe for success here? How do we accelerate geothermal innovation?
Well, the report suggests a multifaceted approach,
Okay.
expanding geothermal specific research programs, creating dedicated funds for innovative projects, fostering public-private partnerships to encourage the demonstration and testing of new technologies.
So it's that classic combination of government support, private sector investment, and collaboration across
Yeah.
different sectors.
Exactly. And the report actually points to some really inspiring examples of how this is already happening.
Okay.
The United States and the European Union have both invested heavily
Okay.
in geothermal research and development.
Right.
And we're already starting to see some pretty promising results.
That's encouraging to hear. It sounds like there's real momentum building around geothermal.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's exciting to see that investment in innovation paying off.
It is, yeah.
You mentioned specialized research facilities earlier.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the report suggests that, public funds could be used to establish these specialized research facilities
Yeah.
that are specifically dedicated to testing, high temperature, high pressure equipment
Yeah.
for geothermal applications.
So it's like a giant pressure cooker.
Exactly.
It's for geothermal tech.
That's a great way to think about it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you're going to be drilling into those extreme environments, you need to make sure that your equipment is up to the challenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And having those dedicated research facilities
Yeah.
could really dramatically accelerate the development of these next generation technologies
Right, right.
that will help us unlock geothermal's true potential.
This has been an amazing deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered so much ground today, from the basics of geothermal energy to the mind-blowing potential of super hot rock systems and the policy recommendations
Yeah.
and research initiatives that are driving this industry forward.
It's been an incredible journey. I always learn something new when we have these deep
I
dives.
do. It's clear that geothermal has a lot to offer.
It does.
But as we wrap things up, I wanna come back to that central question that we started with.
Yeah.
Why isn't geothermal more widely used?
Yeah.
It seems like it has so much potential, but it's still a relatively small player in the
Right.
global energy mix.
Right. Yeah, it's a complex question, but I think the IEA report provides some really valuable insights.
Okay.
For a long time, geothermal was seen as this kind of niche energy source,
Right.
limited to those few places with easily accessible hydrothermal resources.
Right. Right. It was all about the geysers and hot springs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that perception is changing pretty rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like it is with these next generation technologies. I mean, we're talking about accessing heat almost anywhere
Almost anywhere on Earth. Yeah.
on Earth at depths and temperatures that were previously just unimaginable.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's like we've unlocked a whole new dimension of geothermal
I
energy.
think you're right. Yeah.
And this report from the IEA paints a very optimistic
It does.
picture of the future of geothermal.
Mhm.
It seems like the stars are aligning here. We have the technology, the resource, the growing demand for clean energy, and this increasing awareness of the climate crisis.
Yeah, I agree. And the report makes a very compelling case that with the right policies,
Yeah.
the right investments and collaborations, geothermal can really become a major player
Right.
in the clean energy transition.
Okay.
It can contribute to both power and heat generation. It can even provide, valuable minerals like lithium.
Right. Right.
It's a truly exciting prospect.
It is. It's like we're on the cusp of a geothermal revolution.
I think you're right. It's an exciting time to be following the developments in this industry.
Yeah.
The next few years will be really crucial for geothermal energy,
Yeah.
and I'm eager to see how it all unfolds.
Me too. Well, I think we've reached the end of our geothermal deep dive.
Yeah, it has been an illuminating journey.
It has been an illuminating journey. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations.
And as always, we encourage our listeners to check out the full IEA report.
Yes.
If you want to learn even more. There's a link to it in the show notes. And please share your thoughts with us online. We'd love to hear your perspectives on this fascinating topic. Thanks for listening.